The Grand Council chamber of the Velcrothi Empire fell silent as Princess Velnara was led through its crystalline halls. Her iridescent skin, once the pride of her lineage, now seemed dull beneath the harsh judgment of 1,000 eyes. The other Velcrothi nobles whispered behind their slender hands, their elongated bodies swaying with barely concealed disdain. Velnara's body did not conform to the rigid aesthetic standards of her people. Where they were willowy and angular, she was round and soft. Where they moved with sharp precision, she carried herself with a different grace, one her people had long ago decided was no grace at all. Princess Velnara, High Arbiter Keshval announced, his voice echoing through the chamber like breaking glass. You have brought shame upon the royal lineage. Your condition is an embarrassment to the throne. Therefore, the council has decided upon your punishment. Velnara kept her head high, though her heart trembled. She had endured years of mockery, countless treatments and procedures, all in a desperate attempt to reshape herself into something her people could accept. Nothing had worked. Nothing had ever been enough. You will be given, Keshval continued, to the human maintenance worker aboard Orbital Station Epsilon 7. Perhaps among the lesser species, you will finally find your place. The chamber erupted in cruel laughter. To be given to a human, a janitor no less, was the ultimate humiliation for royalty. Humans were considered primitive by Velcrothi standards, barely worthy of the menial tasks assigned to them across the Empire. Velnara said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Jonas Reed was cleaning the observation deck when they brought her in. He'd been working on Epsilon 7 for 3 years, mopping floors and fixing atmospheric recyclers while the galaxy's elite conducted their business overhead. He'd learned to make himself invisible, to exist in the spaces between their notice. It was easier that way. The Velcrothi guards practically shoved the princess through the doorway, their disgust evident even through their translators. Human, one sneered. This creature is now your responsibility. The council expects you to house and feed it. Do not let it die. Beyond that, we care not what becomes of it. They left without another word. Jonas set down his mop and studied the alien woman before him. She was tall, easily 7 feet, with skin that shimmered in shades of purple and blue. Her eyes were large and luminous, filled with a sadness so profound it made his chest ache. She wore tattered robes that might have once been magnificent, and she held herself with a dignity that no amount of cruelty could fully extinguish. Ma'am, Jonas said softly, I'm Jonas Reed. I guess we're roommates now. Velnara stared at him, waiting for the inevitable look of disappointment, of disgust. But it never came. The human simply smiled, a gentle, genuine expression that reached his eyes. You must be tired, Jonas continued, and probably hungry. My quarters aren't much, but they're clean. Come on, I'll show you. The first week was silent. Velnara spent her days in the corner of Jonas's modest quarters, expecting punishment, expecting demands. But Jonas simply went about his work, greeting her each morning with a warm good morning and returning each evening with food. Never the nutrient paste the guards had provided, but real meals he'd carefully researched to match Velcrothi dietary needs. I figured you might like this, he'd say, setting down plates of carefully prepared dishes. I talked to the station's xenobiologist. She helped me understand your people's nutrition better. Velnara ate in silence, bewildered by this strange human who treated her like a person rather than a burden. On the 8th day, she finally spoke. Why? Her voice was melodic, though rusty from disuse. Why do you do this? Jonas looked up from his datapad where he'd been reading about Velcrothi culture. Do what? Treat me with kindness. I am nothing, a shame to my people. They gave me to you as punishment for both of us. Jonas set down the datapad and met her luminous eyes. You know what I see when I look at you? Velnara tensed, preparing for the blow. I see someone who's been hurt, someone who's been told lies about their own worth for so long they started to believe them. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. But I also see strength. You survived years of cruelty and still carry yourself like royalty. That's not nothing, princess. That's everything. Something cracked in Velnara's chest, some wall she'd built to protect what remained of her heart. I am not beautiful by my people's standard, she whispered. Maybe not, Jonas agreed. But beauty isn't universal. You're beautiful by mine. The months that followed transformed them both. Jonas taught Velnara about human culture, sharing stories of Earth's diverse peoples who celebrated bodies of all shapes and sizes. He showed her ancient art depicting humans of every form, spoke of movements that had fought against narrow definitions of beauty. On Earth, he explained one evening, we had to learn that there's no single way to be beautiful. It took us a long time, too long, but we got there. Your people, they're still trapped in that old thinking. Velnara, in turn, shared the secret histories of her empire, the stories the council had tried to erase. There had been a time long ago when Velkrathi came in many forms, but successive rulers had narrowed the definition of acceptability until only one body type remained permissible among the elite. I am not an aberration, Velnara realized aloud one day. I am a remnant, a reminder of what we once were. Exactly, Jonas said, grinning. You're not the problem. They are. Jonas began taking Velnara on walks through the station's public areas. At first she resisted, dreading the stairs. But Jonas walked beside her with such casual confidence, greeting every being they passed with friendly warmth, that something shifted. The stairs continued, but they no longer felt like weapons. Other humans on the station began to take notice. They'd smile at Velnara, compliment her iridescent skin, ask about her jewelry, remnants of her royal heritage she'd been too afraid to wear. Jonas encouraged her to display them proudly. You're a princess, he'd remind her. Act like it. 6 months after her arrival, the High Arbiter himself visited the station. He expected to find Velnara broken, diminished, perhaps even deceased. Instead, he found her in the station's garden, wearing restored royal robes, her skin gleaming with health, surrounded by a group of humans and other aliens who were listening intently as she shared poetry from her homeworld. Beside her stood Jonas, beaming with pride. What is the meaning of this? Cherished demanded. This was meant to be a punishment. Velnara rose to her full impressive height. For the first time in her life, she looked at the High Arbiter without shame. You meant to break me, she said, her voice clear and strong. You gave me to Jonas believing humans were lesser beings who would complete my humiliation. But you were wrong about everything. She placed her hand on Jonas's shoulder. This human showed me that worth isn't measured in centimeters of waste or the approval of cruel councils. He taught me that there is strength in gentleness, beauty in compassion, and dignity in treating all beings with respect. Jonas stepped forward. With respect, Arbiter, you gave us to each other thinking it would be punishment. But you gave us something far more valuable. You gave us the chance to see what we were worth, and we're worth a hell of a lot more than you ever imagined. Cherished sputtered. But several human diplomats had arrived, along with representatives from other species who'd befriended Velnara. The political implications were clear. The princess had allies now, and they were not to be dismissed. The Arbiter left in fury, but the damage to his authority was done. A year later, Jonas and Velnara still lived in those same modest quarters on Epsilon 7. Though they'd been offered far grander accommodations, they preferred their home, the place where they'd built something the Velkrathi Empire couldn't comprehend. A partnership based on mutual respect, genuine affection, and the radical belief that every being deserves to be cherished exactly as they are. Thank you, Velnara said one evening, as they watched stars drift past the observation window. For what? Jonas asked. For seeing me when I had forgotten how to see myself. Jonas took her hand, his small and pale against her large and iridescent one. That's what we do, he said simply. We see each other. That's what makes us human. And in that moment, Velnara understood. Humanity wasn't a species designation. It was a choice, a commitment to recognize the inherent worth in every being. The janitor had taught the princess the most royal lesson of all, that true nobility lies not in perfection, but in compassion.